Hey guys, I think I'm streaming. Hold on a second. I'm waiting to see what happens. We're gonna give it a second to start. Oh, the joys of technology. Hey, there we are. Okay, good. Looks like you guys can't see me yet though. All right, please hold, please hold. So when I stream from Zoom, just so you guys know, it's a little bit delayed. No biggie. All right. I'm trying to see how this is working. Oh, good. All right, now I see myself. And hold on, while we're waiting for everybody to get on, I'm going to start a watch party on my personal profile. If you're here watching live, drop me a comment so I know. Oh my gosh, there we are. Okay, this is gonna be a little weird because the screen on Facebook is actually delayed, but I'm gonna try and keep up with comments and stuff like that. So, hi, it has been a hot second since I have been live. Apologies. There's been a lot of learning in this first year of entrepreneurship. And there was all this language of, I should go live. I should do it this way. I should do it that way. Hey, Diane, so good to see you. No problem. This will be, you can watch it later on too. So it'll still be available. So in any case, lives just weren't part of my marketing strategy towards the end of last year, but now I'm home and I have all this stuff to offer you guys. So this is actually going to be the first in a series. Diane, if you can, just let me know if you can hear me okay, because I'm trying a whole bunch of new stuff out today. I want to make this as interactive as possible. In any case, so lost my train of thought, of course. Done is better than perfect, in my opinion, right now. When I was putting this together the past couple of days and even putting the finishing touches on it this morning, I was going through all the things in my head. Good. All right, good. I'm glad you can hear me. I was going through all the things in my head about like how I could do things better. Like I could have had all these slides prepared and whatnot. And then I was like, nope, we're not gonna like get into this as a reason to, not overcomplicate it. Actually, if you see the bookshelf behind me, I started trying to like reorganize it yesterday so that I would have a more picturesque backdrop, which by the way, if somebody wants to offer a live on how to make like the backdrops for your Facebook lives more picturesque in a tight space, I will watch it. I like have a whole list of lives that I want to watch. So I think I'm just going to put that up somewhere so that somebody can start making them. In any case, so hopefully, I first and foremost, hoping that you all are doing well. And I know it's a crazy time. And I want to preface this because I see a lot of, again, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. You should be doing what feels comfortable to you right now. And if that's like staying at home and watching Netflix, totally fine. But if you are bored of Tiger King, which I haven't started yet, so no spoilers, then you I want to provide as much information as possible on how to keep moving your business forward in this time. And because visuals are such an important part of your marketing strategy, I want to make sure that you have the tools that you need to put strong imagery out there. And I see, I see so many people using cell phone photography and going very far in their business, but the imagery is just not it's not captivating. There's no reason for me to stop the scroll. And if your engagement is kind of like wishy-washy right now, if you just want your stuff to look better, then I want to make sure that you have all the tools needed. Now, this is mostly with product photography, product-based businesses in mind. However, you can definitely use these tools for photos of people. So I'm going to start out with the most important tool, your camera. This is your camera, right? Please, for the love of God, number one, if there is nothing else you take away from this tutorial today, I just want it to be this one thing, and that's to clean your lens. This lens, and if you're gonna be talking to the camera like Instagram story style, this lens, all right? Both of them need to be, I know we're getting like super used to wiping everything down, so hopefully, you're already in the habit. But honestly, even if you just and wipe it down, it's going to make a world of a difference. And I want to demonstrate to you guys what that difference looks like. Oh man, hold on a second. All right, I'm going to share my screen in a little bit, but for right now, I'm going to share it this way. Where did it go? I just had it open. Didn't I just have it open? See, I'm just gonna go with the flow, you guys. Seriously, just gonna go with the flow. Maybe I won't share my screen with you and you won't get to see it. Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay. So this is what it looks like, the before and after. And even the after could be still a little bit better. But you see these, first of all, do you see how hazy it is? And then the streaks. There's so much residue that builds up on your lenses. Like, you don't even have to be touching the phone, but whatever happens to it in your bags, in your pockets, in your hands, or whatever, there's going to be residue that builds up. So like the most important thing that you can do is just wipe off your lens to get a clearer, crisper picture. These cameras on our phones are so good right now that really the one thing holding you back from good cell phone photography is just not taking care of your camera. So let's just start with that one very important thing. You can already see in this after picture, how much more vibrant the colors are, and how much better they look. So, all right, basics out of the way. There's a lot of tools that our cell phone cameras actually don't, that we don't even notice. So I want to introduce a bunch of them to you if I can. Oh, good. All right, good. We're going to go to the camera. So you guys should be able to see the camera in a minute. So this is what I wanted to have connected today. So I'm actually doing a screen share of my cell phone. You can see my setup here. Look at that. Oh my gosh, that's so meta, isn't it? And we're going to be using a lot of my backdrop here. This is a much better backdrop. Like, it looks like I actually do things. But all right, so we're screen sharing. Now, if you just, let's just say I'm going to use my word of the year as a focal point, right? It shows you that little box. All right, you see that little box? That's your focal point, first of all. So make sure that when you're taking a picture, you have what you want in focus. And it's very, very good at detecting what your focal point is going to be. So I know it's kind of hard to really see, but like this is a three-dimensional object, right? If I press down here, that intention is not as sharp as the little picture holder. If I click on intention, then that gets everything, that gets the word in focus, right? What you really want to try to do, especially if you're taking, let's say, a selfie, we're going to get even more meta. Try to focus on the eye, because that's the most important thing. That's where you want to draw people to. Make sure that you're putting your focus exactly where you want people's eyes to be drawn to. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Now, the other thing, I think I'm just going to keep it here because the lighting is so good on me. The other thing that I want you guys to take note of is this little sun next to the box. I know there is an equivalent on Android that you can do. I know, Melissa, it is a little bit like Inception. You know what? I'm going to flip it back so we're not as overwhelmed with pictures of me. A lot of people don't use this function. It is the exposure on your photo. Now, this is a really important function of your picture taking, because light is the most important thing. Light is what makes photography, all right? Photography literally translates to light drawing, okay? And if you don't have good light, which I don't from this side, if I'm pointing that way because all my light is hitting me, then you're gonna have crappy pictures. Your artificial light at home is really not great for photography. So the more you can get towards a window, or even investing in one of these lights, you can buy like super cheap ones on Amazon too. You know, now you have to wait a little longer to get them, but there's something called the Lumix Cube, and I will put the link to it in the comments. So make sure that you are putting light on the subject that you want to be putting it on, and be very, very observant of, here's another selfie of me, of how it lands on your subject, okay? So here, if we take a look at this great selfie of me, right? You can see over on the, I think it's gonna be the right side for you guys, how white, I'm completely blown out on that side. You want to avoid that as much as possible. I'm going to be going in a little bit to editing a little bit later on how to bring that back. But if you blow it out too much, then that's just information the camera doesn't get, like it doesn't read it. So you want to make sure that you actually try to underexpose, even though it may seem like it's dark, because it's a lot easier to bring your darks up than it is to bring your lights down, especially if they're that bright, okay? So pay attention to where the light, how the light is landing. Don't blow everything out. Now you know how to easily change the exposure. So actually, if I'm doing this example, the more I bring the exposure up, you see how that, like, yeah, the intention word is still okay, but everything behind it is blown out. And even though while it's not the subject of the photo, you want to avoid blowing it out too much. All right. We can always fix it later, not have a lot of attention going to it. And I'm going to teach you guys about that in a minute too. But make sure that your exposure is right. This could actually probably work. Now, when you just tap, that will automatically change the exposure on your phone. So, I tapped on this, it's exposing so that the intention word is correctly exposed. If I tap on the screen, then it darkens the intention and makes the screen right for exposure. So just keep all of that in mind. And then once you have your light set up beautifully, perfectly, some tips to do that also is to get away from the sun. And I know that sounds kind of contradictory because we should be chasing the light, but actually, when it comes to photography, hold on, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here for a second. When it comes to photography, if you're going to be using the sunlight, you have to be very, very intentional with how you do it. So if you ever notice, like when you're looking straight at the sun and you squint, that's not a good look for anybody. If you are going to turn yourself away from the sun, then you can look, your face is in the shadow, first of all. So it's more evenly lit. You don't have all these harsh shadows in your photo. And because those are just bad. And I think that selfie, I'll bring it back up later on, but I think that selfie showed like there were harsh shadows here and there were harsh shadows here. So just be very mindful of where the light is hitting in your photo, okay? After that, after you've perfectly lit your photo, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about composing it and what you can do to kind of make sure that your audience's eye goes to the subject. So there's something in photography that we call the rule of thirds. And basically what that means, I'm going to show you, is I want you to imagine a picture. Like imagine the shot that you're seeing right now. And I want you to draw a 3x3 grid on it, okay? And that is where the rule of thirds comes from. Hold on a second. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Good. Share. Okay, so we're going to take this picture of my dearest friend, one of my dearest friends, Andrea. This was taken during her brand shoot in North Carolina. And so notice how there's like I put a grid of 3x3. That middle square, you kind of want to keep things away from it because that's where our eyes are naturally inclined to go to when we look at an image. Like that's just straight where they go. Our eyes just go to the middle of anything that we're looking at, right? If you put things off to the side a little bit, top side, any side, to the bottom, you're forcing somebody's eye to travel to that location. And that's what makes, like, if you're thinking about how quickly people are scrolling through their phone, if they have to stop and think about, even if it's like a tiny little second, think about where their eye has to go, then you've already stopped the scroll. So, there's a time and a place to put your subjects in the middle of the frame. I'm not saying never do it, but if you want to mix things up a little bit, if you feel like your photos are just like looking the same all the time, play around with where you have them in your frame, okay? And just envision this grid when you're taking a picture and try to put your subject in any of the other squares, right? The other thing, and I don't think this is the best picture to use as an example. I might have to just use, I'm going to use the intention sticker again. So let's stop this share over here. I want you to be mindful of how you're lining up your edges. So actually what I'm going to do, you guys are going to get a little a little tour of my office here. Oh, I do still have to keep sharing the screen. Okay, we're gonna go back to the camera. No. Well, all right. So see how I'm pointing up at all these squares, and that's okay to do if that is your intention. But I see a lot of people doing it without that being the way they actually want their photo to look. They're not being very mindful about how their lines are lining up in the frame. So what I really want you to do is, I don't know if you guys can see. Do you see how I'm making sure the edge of the picture kind of lines up with the edge of the frame in that picture? That's my that's the first logo I ever had, by the way. It was drawn for me by my best friend. That's where the sunflower comes from. That's why it's up on the wall. But so like usually somebody might just go like this, you know, from my position. If you have to get on your tiptoes, and this would definitely be better when I'm standing, although you're gonna see my waist on the actual video, but just try to line it up. And it's not gonna be perfect everywhere because, well, first of all, that picture's crooked, so don't judge me there. But it just kind of makes everything flow a lot better in your pictures. Like it looks like it was done intentionally. It looks like you're paying attention to the detail. So just be mindful about how you do that, okay? And I want to show you guys a couple more examples. I think I can share my screen here. I'm like sharing 5 different screens here, you guys. So that's why I'm like kind of all over the place. This one. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm going to share that screen. I want you to take a look at this picture of the palm trees here. Now, there's no way from my angle, since, you know, unless I was a drone photographer or I had like a 50 or 100-foot ladder to put me at the level of them, that I could get them kind of like straight in the frame, right? So here, I kind of wanted to make sure that they were all going to be going the same direction, not like crisscrossed or whatever. Be careful about putting your camera, you know, either this way or this way or this way. Do it with intention when you're doing it that way. And your photos are just going to like go miles better. Perfect. Man, there's like seriously so many screens. Next, I want to talk about if you're going to be taking pictures of yourself. Oh, hey, Bumper. So good to see you. Yeah, I'm a little rusty. I haven't done lives as much as I used to for NJ.com. Definitely going to be doing more of them. Actually, Bumper, video, and for everybody, I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to take better cell phone videos. It's really just videos in general, but it really just challenges you to think of videos and video clips and how you shoot them in a totally different way. And a lot of it I learned from Bumper. So in any case, oh, okay. So we were going to talk about if you are taking pictures of yourself. So actually, before we get there, we're going to go back to my intent. Actually, this is saying comfort. That was my word of the year last year. This is my word this year. On the same note, for composition, I'm going to have to turn the screen share on my cell phone back on. Okay. Oh, we missed one of the most important ones. I'm like, whew. All right. The other function that you guys probably don't know that you have on your phone or haven't figured out how to use yet is the portrait mode. This is what it's called on the iPhone. I think it's called Lens Blur on Androids, and they both work very differently, right? But portrait gives you that amazing blurry background that people love in their photos. In photography, that's known as a shallow depth of field. And it makes sure that your subject stands out against the background. Now, as a rule of thumb, first of all, hold on, let me go back to a regular screen for a hot second here. Oh, it wasn't even sharing. Okay. I tend to like to take my photos in a way that has my subject a few feet away from the background. Again, there's a time and place where I might want them right up against the backdrop. So like, let's say it's a building and somebody wants to get a picture of like the mural behind them, very crystal clear. Then you would have them right against the mural. However, I always tell my clients 90% of the time to take 5 to 10 steps towards me, and I move myself back because that brings more attention. Again, remember how we were talking about making sure that your eye travels to something or like can grasp something really, really quickly. You want your subject to be that focal point. So if you put it right against the backdrop, and I'm going to demonstrate this. I'm actually going to share the screen this time, I promise. So here's that intention word, right? My little frame. And it's right up against these books. By the way, that's my reading material right now. If you're interested, Jen Sincero is my favorite hero right now. There's no reason for me to really, I don't know what I should be focusing on. Even if I turn it into portrait mode, it's still like, it's so busy. We don't know what's going on, right? If I move it back, or I'm sorry, if I move it forward towards me and I move my phone, first of all, in portrait mode, you need to have your subject a little bit further away from the backdrop for the portrait mode to catch on to the subject. That's number one. Even if I did it with the photo, no, well, I'd have to bring it up like right here. Now that's just a result of the lens that's being used. If you're using portrait mode or lens blur, it actually, you have 2 lenses on your phone. The new ones have even 3. I haven't played around with those, but like, as you can see, this is the subject. It's right in the forefront, and everything else is just kind of an aside. Try to refrain from taking too many pictures like this, because again, we don't really know what's going on. We don't really know what the subject is supposed to be. With portrait mode, bring it up. Now, if you have an iPhone, you have to wait for, you're going to see this, there's going to be like a yellow square around the subject. Aha. It clicked. You can see when it clicks, because if it doesn't, hold on, that natural light, and we'll talk about those options in a minute. But if you don't have that yellow outline, that means it didn't click. So you want to make sure that it grasps the subject, and then it'll blur everything out. And now we know exactly what our eyes should be going towards. These options at the bottom, I don't really use them too much, to be honest with you, because I personally feel like you can do a lot of it in post. But just to give you guys an idea, if you slide it, and again, this is just for the iPhones, you can get it a little bit lighter. You can play around with how it looks. Like that makes it become a stage light. That makes it become black and white. But again, you can definitely achieve these effects when you edit your pictures. So I personally prefer to just take it normal. And if I want to get fancy with it later, I will. And that is portrait mode. So now let's just take a picture of this really quick so I can demonstrate some editing to you guys. So there's a couple ways. First of all, there's a whole bunch of editing software that you can use on your phone. I use this aside from the built-in iPhone editing software, which is actually pretty good. I'll show you guys that. Well, I'll show you guys that one in a minute because that's the one I'm going to be using mostly. And I'm sure that whatever Android editing system that you guys have, you're going to have a lot of these same options. But if you want to get a little bit fancier with your editing, I use something called VSCO, VSCO. I'm pretty sure if you guys haven't heard about it in a professional sense, you've probably heard the term VSCO girl. That's really just a reflection of this app because a lot of Instagrammers tend to use it. There's some old pictures of some good food that I made here. Oh, and a puppy. So you can play around with this one, but I want to just at least get into the basics of how you should be editing your photos to begin with. So let's go back to that intention picture that I took. Now at the top right, you're going to see edit. First of all, if you didn't know where that was, if you have an iPhone, now you do. So now you know how to edit your photos. If you took a portrait photo, it's probably going to take a little bit longer to load because there's more data. It's a bigger picture. Now, I want you to go from that. If you look at the bottom, there's a cube, a circle, 3 circles, and like a square and arrows at the bottom. If you go to the square and arrows, that lets you crop your photos. Now, this is actually super useful. If you go to, once you're in the crop screen, if you go to the top right where you see that like rectangle within a rectangle within a rectangle, you at the bottom can choose, first of all, the orientation, if you want to play around with that. You can freeform how you want it to crop. So that basically means that there's no restriction on, like, if I move my finger like this, it's just going to let me do whatever I want. However, if I choose square, it changes it so that I can only edit in square form. Okay. 9:16, 8:10. These are all resolution orientations that are very important. For instance, Instagram, I think is 9:16. If you do an 8:10, you're going to see when you post an Instagram story, that the edges get cut off. So if you want to just like from out the gate see how your photo is going to look on an Instagram story, do 9:16. I'm not sure. It might be I think it's 9:16 though. In any case, so that's how you can crop your photos for what you need. Now, you can also flip them on the side. If you see at the top left, you can rotate, or if I wanted to flip it. So this is actually super useful if you're taking a selfie and you have text. Let's just say that I was holding this up, the text would appear backwards. So you could just flip it and it would appear the way that you want it to. So let's just reset that to what it was. We're gonna get out of that. Going back to edit. So let's go to that second option at the bottom, which is that circle with all the dots around it. Okay, I'm gonna say something that a lot of photographers are probably, I'd probably get banished. So don't tell any other photographers that I do this. I actually always start out with auto because a lot of the time, if you're just posting for social, and this is not a great example because it didn't do what I wanted it to do, but it's not bad. At the very least, it gets me started on what I might want to do, and I can go in and customize what I want from it later on. The next one is exposure. So actually, let me go back to that photo that I was showing you guys, that awesome selfie of me. Hey, what a hottie. If I go into exposure, it doesn't matter how dark I make this photo. That white is always going to be that white. It's just going to stand out. It's blown out. There's nothing you can do with it. There's nothing I can do to save all the detail that's supposed to be in my face there. I just wanted to show you guys that as a frame of reference, you know, and I can make it brighter, which that would be really scary if I was that white. Well, actually, that's kind of accurate right now, given how much I've been inside. I actually have more of a tan in the original picture. But let's go back to the intention photo. And if I bring the exposure up, looks a lot nicer, right? Now, I want you to pay attention to the light in the back because that's another example of how I'm blowing out that light. Now, again, it's not it's not it's not the focal point of the picture, but because it's taking up so much of the frame and it doesn't look like it's a lot of the frame. But if I have it that bright, my eye is immediately also going to go to the brightest part of the photo. So it's not going to be on the word intention. It's going to go to the light, which again is why lighting is so important when you're taking a photo. But let's just leave it here for right now. Let's pretend that that corner isn't that bright. We're going to go next to highlights because this is where I might be able to rescue it a little bit, although it does not look like it. Well, it's not horrible. Highlights are actually, if there is enough information in your photo where it's not blown out, so your whites are still like there's still enough detail in them, you can bring the highlights down. Now, if you notice, it's kind of making everything else behind it more saturated because there's highlights basically anywhere. There's yellow highlights, there's green highlights, like they're everywhere. So it's going to bring everything down. I was kind of hoping it was going to focus on just that light. So I'm going to leave this here. Let's actually play around with it on this photo. Go to highlights. See, there's no saving that white. It brings everything else down. Everywhere else there's light, it's bringing it down, but there's no rescuing that spot. So, all right. Next, we're going to go back to intention. Oh no, what happened to my edit? I think I must have not saved it. Let's bring the exposure back up. There it is. Okay. The next one is the opposite to highlights, which is shadows. So shadows are going to control the dark spots in your photo. So if you move it down, it's going to make all the darks even darker. And if you move it up, it's just kind of not like, it's not necessarily going to make them lighter. It's just going to make them bland. It's going to take the juice out of them. So you don't really want to do that unless that's the effect that you're going for. I actually think it does look better when I take some of the shadows out. So we're going to leave it right there for right now. Contrast is exactly what it sounds like. So it's going to kind of deepen some colors, If you take the contrast out, then you see it turns like super bland, super weird. I kind of like it a little bit up. It brings a little more detail. It adds like a crispness to the photo. The next one that I want you to pay attention to is saturation. Now, saturation, if it's completely desaturated, it's going to be black and white. If you are going to bring it up all the way, then it looks like Ronald McDonald's Playhouse, which, unless you're McDonald's, I'm pretty sure is not an effect that you're going for. So I don't really play around with this too much unless I've taken a picture on a cloudy day and I just want to get a little bit more color in there. Or on the other side of things, let's go back to, oh no, I don't want to discard changes. Let's save the ones that I've already taken. Let's go back to that selfie. And see what happens if I bring the saturation down just a bit. Yeah, I get grayer. That isn't the best example. That's all right. Okay. Let's go back to intention because we're doing this with intention. We're going to go to warmth next. Now, this is the most important editing function aside from exposure, because this is very dependent on your aesthetic. I tend to like my photos with a little more warmth, especially when they're of people, because I feel like it brings a little bit more life into the photo. If you like that cooler vibe, the bluer tone to it, then you are going to want to change the warmth to reflect that. So just to give you an idea, I'm going to move it to be a cooler photo, and now it's turning very blue. If I want to make it, now this is already a warm picture to begin with. That's just the effect of the light that I have. But if I wanted to make it even warmer, I could bring it up. You see the difference there. So when you're doing pictures for your, let's just say your brand, and you want to maintain a certain aesthetic that you already have going, then like say you tend to have more blues in your pictures and you like that cooler tone, and you're going to bring the warmth down to the negatives in there. And then the rest of them, tint is another one. I don't really play around with tint, but if you bring the tint up, it makes it pink. If you bring the tint down, it makes it green. Sometimes if there's too many reds in your photos, you want to use the tint to bring the greens out so that they show more, and vice versa. If there's too many pinks, if there's too many greens and you want to like not have it so green, then you can bring the tint up to magenta. So the other stuff, again, you're just going to play around with sharpness. You can theoretically bring a little more sharpness into a picture. That's not to say that you can take a picture that's completely out of focus and all of a sudden, like wave your magic wand and make it super, super sharp. But it just kind of makes the edges a little bit clearer and brings a little bit more detail. And the rule of thumb generally is to not do any of these edits all the way up or down, because you are going to get very, very hyperbolic effects going on. So just kind of find a sweet spot to how you want your pictures to look. Also, keep in mind with sharpness, and the next one called definition, is the more you bump those up, the more pronounced your darks and your lines are going to be. So if you are super LA and don't want your wrinkles showing, which is something that most of us can relate to, then you don't want to bring those up too much. All right, so I'm going to stop the share here. And I think that's going to Oh, I wanted to talk about one last thing. If you're taking pictures, actually, you know what? I'm going to save that one. I'm going to save that one because I'm planning to do a few more tutorials, and I promise I'm going to be a little less scatterbrained because I won't have 5 screens going on at once. I'm planning to do video like I was mentioning earlier to just kind of get you to think about video completely differently, so that way you can be shooting clips that can be used in promo videos later on, and we're going to talk about promo videos too. I am going to do another cell phone tutorial on how to take pictures of people and kind of pose yourself even. These are just general techniques that you can use in posing wherever. If you're taking photos of your family, or if you're going to be taking selfies, just some things to keep in mind. And there are some others now that are escaping me. I'll put them in the comments. There's a lot of tutorials coming up, you guys. Oh, lay flats for my product photographers. I'm going to teach you how to, and I might bring somebody else on here. I know wedding vendors are really good at this. This was never one of my strong suits, but how to create a good lay flat. So if you like, let's just say, I know I have a lot of friends that sell essential oils. It's great to take pictures of the little jars, but you want to add more stuff into the picture so that it creates a mood, #mood. And you want to do it in a very, very intentional way, so it doesn't, again, take focus away from your subject, but also, oh, good. Flat laser, lay flats, flat lays. I never see it. I do them so rarely that I don't even know what to call them. So we'll go over that. And if you want to prepare for it beforehand, I would suggest that you get a poster board. A regular 8x11 piece of paper, even for the little jars like of essential oils, is going to be too small. You want to have as much to work with as possible. Oh, and the last one, another one for my product-based businesses, or if you just want to step up your food photography game, I'm going to teach you how to make a light box with stuff that you already have in your house. The only thing that you would have to get if you don't already have it is white tissue paper. Other than that, I'm pretty sure that everybody has a box from deliveries that they can use. The bigger the box, the better. So like think about a box of like a case of wine or something like that, kind of that size. So you need one of those, tissue paper, and you already have the lights, you have scissors. I'm going to teach you how to make a light box so that you have professional looking product photography that you can get on your cell phone. In the meantime, thank you all so much who tuned in live. What I'm going to do for anybody who didn't tune in live is I'm actually going to, I was going to jot down what I was talking about at what time. Now I'm just going to have to watch the replay with all of you. I'm going to bookmark at what time I spoke about what, so you can quickly go into it later on and refer back to it if there's something that I went over and you didn't catch. So that way you don't have to listen to the entire hour. Yeah, I will be back next week. Thank you all for tuning in.